What's going on, everybody? How you doing? In today's video, this is a donation request. This is for Seth. This is actually going to be 2 parts. So this is interesting. He sent me this interview with the incredible bass player Anthony Jackson. So he sent it to me because I picked during one of my What I'm Playing For You videos, I picked Chaka Khan. And Anthony Jackson was a big part of why I picked it, right? Aside from just the obvious, Chaka Khan's fantastic and it's studio musicians. I love studio musicians like Anthony Jackson. They're just impeccable. They're fantastic. They're great, right? So this is an audio interview, which I cut up. It's going to be 2 parts with Anthony Jackson from 2007, backstage at Blue Note Tokyo. This is from cliffalmanmusic.com. So shout out to them. In this interview, Anthony talks about what it was like to play with Tony Williams, Steve Gadd, and Buddy Rich for the first time. If you guys don't know who Tony Williams is, you need to get out from under the rock music. Okay. Also, he discusses how he arrived at his muting technique and how his unique sound evolved through the various performances and recordings he has played on over the years. So here's the other thing that I'm going to add to this interview just before we get into it. This is from 2007. Okay, I actually have like a scrapbook of just all kinds of music, business, industry, just things from magazines that I pulled out through the years. This is mostly when I lived in Boston. I was like studying music really hard, all that kind of thing. And actually, I have the short interview that I cut out of Anthony Jackson. This is from Bass Player Magazine's 20th anniversary issue. And they were asking different bass players what they thought the next 20 years of music would look like, the next 20 years of bass playing, what that would look like. And he gives his answer right here. The interview's from 2007, this interview's from 2008, and we're about 5 years away from this being 20 years old. So super interesting. I'm going to read this. That's going to be at the end of the second video. Also, this is a Bose ad that I was in. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't think I was supposed to tell you that. I may have signed something. I don't remember. Not guilty. That's when I lived in Boston. Bose is in, it's not Western Mass, but it's like anything west of Boston is Western Mass, right? No. Anyways, they're like in the middle of the state. Okay, this is going to be part 1. First 15 minutes of this interview. If you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. Check it out. If you like the channel, you want to support the channel, you can hit super thanks underneath this video. You can hit me direct in the description. I got PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Amazon wishlist, mailing address, and I do donation requests just like this one. So if there's something you want me to listen to, watch, talk about, hit me direct, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. In the notes section, leave a link, leave a description. Let me know what you want the video to be on and I'll make the video. You can also email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. Thank you guys. All right, guys, let's check this out. This is going to be very interesting to hear what he says, what this is about. Bam. Part 1 of an interview.
This lesson this time's a little bit different. I've been going back and forth about what I wanted to do, and
this is
I had a list of questions and just different things that I had basically decided on discussing for this lesson. And I was on my way to Japan. A couple of weeks ago, I actually went to Japan to do a couple of weeks of rehearsing and playing with a Japanese pianist over there. And while I was on the flight over, I was sort of going through my list of questions and compiling things and looking at emails that people had sent me. And quite often people ask you about different musicians you've played with. For drummers, I mean, you get a lot of questions about bass players and, who's your favorite this or that, or, what's it like to play with so-and-so. And I've been really lucky in that I've been able to play with so many of my, sort of my heroes growing up, people I saw when I was a kid that really influenced me, bass players, Will Lee, John Patitucci, and a number of people.
I love the mouth noises.
One of the main guys that's really influenced me, as well as just a number of drummers over the years, is Anthony Jackson. And his body of work is just astounding in terms of the recordings.
I'm like, I don't know who Cliff Allman is. He plays with Michelle
Camilla.
Camilla.
He's played with. And,
okay. He's a drummer.
His knowledge of his instrument and of drummers has always been really, really heavy. Whenever I've been on gigs and I've been with Anthony, I quiz him about all kinds of stuff, and I've learned
that
a lot
name,
from him.
I haven't heard that name in a while, Miss Camilla.
Listening to his concepts or ideas about things and what he looks for and what he likes. So I thought it would be a good idea this time, because I was going to be on this gig with him for a couple of weeks, if I could manage to get him on tape commenting about anything from his favorite drummers or what he likes, what he looks for in drummers, and just his opinions about a number of things. Cool. I thought it would be really invaluable if drummers could hear it straight from his mouth.
Also hearing a lot of your mouth.
I was particularly curious about what it was like to play with Tony Williams or Buddy Rich or Gadd, any of these types of people, that all of which he had done. So without any further ado, I'm just going to let this roll. This is basically part one of what ended up being a pretty long interview. I asked Anthony a bunch of questions, basically while I was sitting there chowing down my dinner. And I did it on my mini disc recorder backstage at this gig. It's a little noisy occasionally because it's kind of an old mini disc recorder, but you'll occasionally hear some people come in and out of the room, but you can still hear everything he has to say relatively clearly. So I hope you enjoy it, and here it is. Thanks.
All right, here we go.
So I thought it would be beneficial now that we're playing together on this gig for a week, and I'm curious to know your opinions about some things in terms of, like, I guess for starters, what's the first thing you look for when you play with someone, like when you play with a drummer for the first time, or when you play, like, what's the signal, what's the first, your preference, the first thing that you would enjoy about playing with someone, if you had to pick?
I suppose after so many years, one develops a very broad and rich picture of what one would like to hear. I suppose a good analogy would be someone who's really into wines would look for a number of characteristics to judge the wine, some of them very subtle, and some of them that would be unknown to anyone who doesn't drink wine. Nose, start, finish, I don't even know all the terms, but I hear them described. Clearly, for a drummer now, at this point in my life, you look for the package. You look for all the things that you've learned over many, many years playing with great drummers. You look for solid command of time, a solid command, an instinctive command of concept. When you begin playing with someone, you expect them to settle in very quickly with what they're going to do.
Settle in how? Like
stylistically. You expect someone to sort of right away hit something very, very nice without hunting through half a dozen different styles to find things. The great drummers do that automatically, even if they change what they're doing later on or according to the wishes of the artist or producer. You feel right away that they have a command of styles, a rich command of styles and things within styles, so they instantly make you feel aware and comfortable with what they're doing. And along with that comes an instant awareness that they're listening to what you are doing. As a bass player, you instantly feel when a drummer is doing whatever he's going to do while also paying attention to what you're doing as a player. And certainly the farther up the chain you go, the more mature and experienced and gifted the drummer is, the quicker you settle into that kind of a relationship. Typically with a first-class drummer and a good bass player, that kind of relationship is established in the first minute or two. You know instantly what kind of communication you're going to have. You know instantly how much listening is being done. Of course, there are other vain characteristics, like you can tell if someone is enjoying playing with you. You know if you enjoy playing with them. And again, if you live long enough, you get to be in positions where you instantly form a tight relationship with the drummer within minutes.
You know, it sounds like there's a pretty I've always had the impression of you being sensitive to the confidence in whenever you play with a drummer. You seem to be much more sensitive to the confidence level if the guy's hitting, if the guy is really digging in and showing you right off the bat that it's...
Well, that's what I meant when I said right away, someone, as soon as they begin playing, display a knowledge about what they're going to play without hunting and pausing and being timid.
Well, the knowledge, I mean, what I'm more referring to is the attack of the instrument or the intent.
You know, that really goes without saying. I thought about mentioning that by way of other instrumentalists. I remember thinking of certain people who, the instant they sat down, conveyed a very reassuring sense of confidence. Richard T. was one, great pianist. The instant he sat down and lifted the lid of the piano, you felt that this was someone married to the instrument, who knew it so well that there was no ritual involved. He just sat down and played. Steve Gadd is another. Nothing fancy, just sits down, picks up the sticks, and you're aware, even before he plays, that this is someone who has no issues with his instrument. There's no ritual of getting set. There's no looking around to see who's listening. It's just a matter of slamming into the instrument. That's something that you take for granted when you've, I guess you've been around the block a few times. All of the great players have that to some real extent.
And when you say slamming, you're as much referring to intellectually slamming as you are to, to actually physically hitting the instrument.
I'm looking at attributes of virtuosity, and there are many. Time, tone, touch, developmental concepts.
Right. 3 T's.
But there's also a certain feeling that puts you at ease, knowing that, well, that part of the music is taken care of. You just feel it. No need to worry here. No need to look over and wonder if the person next to you has got it.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
Unsure of it, wondering if they'll ever get it.
Because if the drummer doesn't have that,
I'm looking
all of a sudden
down now.
I have a weight on me as a bass player.
Someone who has fewer years left to play than have already passed. Certainly, you feel like you've earned the right to make decisions like this, and to say that you can tell when somebody is set to give everything they can with a knowledge that it's going to sound great. You can feel it. It does add to the strength of the bond between drums and bass. It makes it probably, I think, the most important relationship within any band. Drums and bass are really where the deck of the battleship supports all the guns that sit on top of it. You've really got to have that straight. And again, trying to use the analogy of fine wines, if you've been tasting or drinking or collecting wines long enough, you just know. You know as soon as you take a sip whether it's a great wine, whether you found it in the gutter or whether you paid $20,000 for it. You can put all that aside, just sample it, and you know. You're a goddamn expert.
Yeah.
So that's basically where that comes, I think.
Is there, when you play with people, who shall and anyone who will remain nameless at this point, but when you play with a drummer, is there like a common mistake that you see that is something that you don't like, that you see often?
I would say they are faults that you would hear typical to all performing artists. Everybody has weak points. Certainly for a drummer, you never want to feel the groove slip. You never want to feel the time breathe. There are occasions when the time does breathe and it enhances the music. But as a rule, you don't want things slipping and sliding from a drummer. That comes down to confidence and experience and the level of virtuosity.
Sorry, it got a little noisy there, so I paused it. My next question for you is, what was it like to play with Buddy Rich? As I eat my
Well, I played with him in two periods. The first in mid or late 73, I showed up with no rehearsal, just called out of the blue, because I had a very, very close friend, still have a close friend, whose family was very close to Buddy, so he knew who I was and had heard some discussions about what I was doing, and suggested when his bass player was leaving that I be called. So I showed up, no rehearsal, 120 charts.
120 charts?
At the time there were 120 charts. No rehearsal, I just had to play cold. I didn't do all that well because my reading wasn't up to spec.
Wow.
So I took a year and beat my head against a wall, sprayed blood all over the room. And within a year I'd gotten it together. Auditioned a second time and I got the gig.
Wow.
How old were you the first time?
20. Second time, 21.
And by the time you got the gig the second time, had you already done other stuff, or was it the first?
I did not much. I'd done a few records. Things were just really getting off the ground for me. But I always was good at playing the blues. You had to be. A teenager at that time, people got together and nobody knew what songs other people knew, and the only thing you had in common was blues. So let's play a blues in D. How about a slow blues in F? How about a shuffle blues in G? How about a high-speed swing blues in D? And so, that being the core of everything, anyone who came up in that period and did a lot of playing had the basis of what was required to work with a drummer like Buddy. Only, of course, you had to be a really good sight reader, and had to be something that I was very fortunate in. I fell right in with him. We immediately hit it off musically. He was very comfortable, and I found once I got past the awesome experience of sitting 4 feet from Buddy Rich, and it took a couple of weeks playing 6 nights a week, 2 sets a night.
Wow.
You know, there were times when I had to almost stop playing and just stare at what he was doing. But then it began to feel very natural. And certainly it sounds patronizing to say that's how you know a drummer like Buddy was as great as he was. But really, even at the nuclear best, when he was just playing at a transcendental level, it was possible to fall right in. It felt so right that you just did it. And he dug it. There was no, God damn it, kid, what do you think you're doing? It just worked. It was a magic relationship. And then I went on to do 2 sets a night, 6 nights a week for 13 months with Buddy Rich.
Wow.
And
where was this?
At his club.
At his club?
At his club on 64th and 2nd Avenue, Buddy's place in New York.
What year was this?
74, 75. And he really put the polish on for me. There's no experience that would have been comparable to being a bass player sitting 4 feet from Buddy Rich that much, that often.
Wow. All right. Part 1. Wow. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like we're just getting started, just scratching the surface. It sounds like this was potentially a long interview, and even potentially longer than this 30 minutes that I have to check out. Yeah, you know, I love this kind of stuff because it's just like you're listening to a master speak candidly, and just whatever you can get out of it, you know, whatever you can get out of it is just fantastic. Really, really, really awesome. Cool stuff. Cool, super cool stuff. I can't even imagine at 20, times are just so different. You know, it's like times are just so different. It's like, man, at 20, you got the opportunity to play with Buddy Rich, and you were playing with him at 21 for like over a year, 6 nights a week, 2 sets a night. That is insane. Like, how are you not a monster after that? Like, how? Like, at least at that thing, you know? It's just sick. That's sick. And that whole thing about the bass and the drums, I've said it before, drummer If I haven't said it on here, I say it to everybody anyways. Drummer is the most important person in the band. Like your band is only as good as your drummer. That's just how I feel. That's how it sounds to me. That's my experience. You're only as good as your drummer. If your drummer is less than, your band isn't going to go over that. Like, that's really just not, I mean, there are not many examples of bands where it's like the drummer is the weakest link and you guys are just, I mean, that's not, I don't know. That's just not how it happens to me. That's not how it happens. Because drums are just so, they're just all encompassing and they're primal, right? So like there's like an instinct kind of thing with drums, like in people that don't know music, right? I mean, there's an instinct kind of thing with music for people in general, but I would say maybe that varies depending on the person. Anyways, this is super cool, and definitely can't wait to get to part 2. Okay, so yeah, he was talking with the drummer bass player kind of thing. Certainly not everybody's perfect, right? And I'm absolutely not on Anthony Jackson's level, obviously. Totally not, right? Or Buddy Rich or any of the guys that they're talking about, right? But I've been lucky to do this for a living for as long as I've been doing and all that kind of thing, and had the experiences that I've had, and, you know, very fortunate for all that kind of stuff. When, as a bass player, when you're playing with a drummer, that their time is just impeccable, I can relax. I can not worry about any of that because their time's impeccable. It allows me, and I would assume also everybody else in the band, to just free up their mind and the things that they can do because they know that the time is taken care of. That being said, just keeping time alone is difficult even for drummers that have been doing it for a while, right? People slip up, things happen. There are drummers that tend to rush. There are drummers that tend to play behind, which gives the tendency of dragging, right? There are those things. I've played with all of those people. And as a bass player, I have to catch on that fast and also be conscious of it and try and then reel in when things are going off the rails, right? I remember being in high school and just starting to play bass. I started playing bass when I was 15, right? And I was in high school playing in the band at high school, and the drummer's just having time issues, right? Just high school, you know, just kids, right? Having time issues, learning, all that kind of thing. But me getting yelled at by the music director about time, and I'm just like, I can't move a brick wall. Like, the drums are a brick wall. I can't like play the bass and get behind the drummer and try and like move their hands into, like, I can't do that. You know, the drummer's going to do what they're going to do. Everybody in the band is responsible for time, but if the drummer doesn't have it, they're like the number one. They are the hands of the clock, right? The engine behind the hands of the clock. Whatever idea, metaphor, concept you want to think of it, you get what I'm saying. Like, you can't move the drummer. If the drummer's time is bad, it's going to be a train wreck, right? So when the drummer's time is fantastic, when it's just like not even an issue, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't need to worry about any of this. I can worry about other things. I can think of different cool, I can go off kind of on like little melodic spurts or different rhythmic things. All of a sudden we can get cool rhythmically. And just whatever, just different things that come about. Where if time is an issue, all of a sudden I have to play differently. I may have to play more simply, more basic, more just to keep it together, because that's number one, right? Keep it together. No train wrecks. Keep it together. So anyways, I totally get what you're saying with all that kind of thing. I just wanted to add that, throw that in. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to part 2. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Part 2 of this interview. And also remember, in that interview, at the end of it, I'm going to read this because I think this is super interesting also. It's been a while since I've even read it. We're 5 years away from this prediction. You know, it's just a guess or whatever, but still it's interesting. So thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next video.